Hi everyone, welcome. I'm out here in my backyard, and this garbage pail here is what I refer to as my compost barrel. I've actually got two of them, you can see, and this one over here actually has a bag inside of it, kind of a grow bag, and I treat that as one of my active managed worm bins. And all the worms that occupy that bin over there are actually retrieved from this outdoor compost barrel. This compost barrel has never had a single worm added to it. Every worm that's ever come into this bin has come into it voluntarily, assuming from the, from out of the ground up through the holes in the bottom of the container. And at times during the summer, this thing is just chock full of worms, so much so that I was able to pretty much fill up that bag with worms, leaving a whole lot to spare in there. So it's always a lot of fun pulling worms out of this container, for whatever the reason. But since this thing sat out here all winter long, I've been really curious for the longest time now how the worms did. Did they survive the winter? Did they freeze? Is it only their cocoons that survived? So maybe we're only going to see baby worms emerging eventually. I had a little bit of a sneak preview, I believe, because I did go in here the other day to throw some weeds that I had pulled out into here, and I noticed a worm, and it was a pretty good sized worm too. And a lot of people, every time I've come out here in the past few weeks to check in on this outdoor worm bin, people have really been interested in seeing what's happening in here. So I'm going to do a little bit of prep work over here. I'm going to remove the coverings. I'm going to pull out some of the cuttings and weeds that I pulled out of the garden the other day. I put a bunch of stuff in here recently that I'm just going to remove to give us easier access. Then we're going to go down in there, see if we could spot any worms. Alright, well that was pretty easy. There was a whole bunch of weeds that I pulled out of my garden the other day, and on top of that I had put in some more kitchen scraps, but it was very easy just to pull the whole wad out in one big felt swoop. So we were able to get access to the compost barrel pretty easily. The first thing I noticed right off the bat was that there were no worms roaming around the top surface. So we will probe down into a little bit, and I really hope we find at least a few worms, because I'd like to at least dispel my concerns that maybe I was definitely interested in dispelling my concerns that maybe the worms had all frozen over the winter. And even if they did, they would have left behind cocoons, and then the babies would be emerging from those cocoons in time. So there will be worms in here. Oh, there we go. We've got ourselves some worms. So it didn't take long. I just had to pull a few things to the side, and there we go. Whole bunch of worms. And some of them look pretty small. It would kind of make me wonder if they were just hatched recently. Although the worm that I spotted the other day was a little bit more mature, making me wonder if perhaps the worms were able to weather the cold winter and survive the cold. I don't know for sure. I just had this hunch that maybe the material in this bin may have frozen through, but I could be mistaken. Ooh. So now here, right away, we can see lots of worms hanging out all over some of these food items. So it's certainly not surprising, because this is a bounty of delicious food items in here, that's for sure. So if you were a worm, you would definitely want to be in here taking advantage of this. And it's a good thing to see. I'm glad, I was really worried, and I can't say for sure that the worms that did occupy this container last summer are still the ones that we're seeing in here, or if it's the next generation. I don't know if all the worms that were in here perished and it's just their offspring emerging from the cocoons that we're seeing here, or what, but either way, the bottom line is we do have an active worm population in here. And I don't know if you could see it, but there is rain coming down now. When I came out here a moment ago, it was really just a fine mist, barely coming down at all. But it does feel to me like every couple seconds the intensity of the rain keeps picking up more and more. So I don't worry too much about that. I know my shirt will dry. I know that the camera that's on my forehead, the GoPro's waterproof, and it can handle it too. But I don't want to get soaked. I'm just very curious, so I'm kind of toughing it out and continuing on with this probe to see what we can see. As we get deeper, you can see some of the material down low is really nice. And here, for example, we got ourselves a perfectly mature worm, very deep dark color. Here's another pretty good sized mature worm. And since all these worms have made their way into here themselves on their own from outside, out of the yard, out of the grass, out of who knows where, there's no real good way for me to know what types of worms these all are. I usually just go on the assumption that I used castings in my garden, mostly red wiggler castings, and that those castings probably included a lot of cocoons, and then, you know, baby red wigglers emerged from those cocoons, eventually making their way across my yard over to my compost barrel. So I don't know for sure, but I usually assume that what I'm looking at when I'm in here is red wiggler worms. There again, I could be completely mistaken. So I'm definitely getting pretty wet now. The rain continues to increase in intensity, but I just can't seem to resist poking in deeper and looking further to see what else we can find. I guess it is a relief just to see that there are worms in here doing well, enjoying the food, but the raindrops are really coming down hard now, so I believe I'm gonna call it a day. And I'm gonna pack this thing up really quick, and that's it for the video. Oh my goodness. All right, everyone, I'm gonna sign off now. Thanks for watching. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I hope you did. All right, everyone, take care. Bye.